So it is 8 p.m. on Monday, the 11th of April, 2022. My name's Criztoz, creator of 45 Day, DJ with the original 45ers, head of the live streams for the 45 Kings Collective, and also a talk show host. This is one of my talk shows. This was my first talk show. It's called Part of My Journey. And in this, I talk to other DJs. I've spoken to comedians. In this case, we're talking to my colleague and co-DJ Adrian, but I'll tell you more about him in a minute. We talk about mental health. We discuss anxiety, depression. We've discussed suicide. We've discussed bereavement, grief, dealing with all those things. And we've also talked about online communities and the support it offers. And we also talk about 45s because that's what we're all into. So today, my very, very special guest and very good friend is Adrian Bradbury. We've been friends for coming on to almost 8, 9, 10 years now. He's my co-DJ in the original 45ers. He's the person who first got me into and back into playing 45s. So obviously, if it wasn't for him, I might not have been on this path that I'm on now. So I'm very excited to have him on, and we've got a lot to talk about. So here he is. This is Adrian.
What's up, everyone? How are you all?
How you doing? You all right?
I'm good, man. I'm very good. I'm a little tired. We're currently moving premises at the moment in my business, but yeah, everything's good and well.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that because obviously putting together a gym and putting together the Misfits community of lifters has been important, certainly part in my life and obviously yours and how you're building. So yeah, it's going to be exciting to see where it's all going to go for the future. But let's go back to the beginning. I sort of talked to my guests and I asked them to tell about their sort of origin stories effectively. So let's start with music. So who were your sort of first musical influences? You know, was it family? Was it siblings? Was it friends? You know, who first got you into music, do you think?
I think it's mainly family that got me into my love and my passion of music and also music of different genres. So as far back as I can remember, there's always been music playing in my house, and I do try and echo that with my own family now. But growing up, my dad was a DJ back in the 50s and the 60s, playing mainly kind of like Northern Soul. They used to sell records at parties, sell 45s at parties. You know, back when you could get the bus home and buy a single and everything for under £1 or whatever it was.
Yeah, so, if only it was this game now.
Yeah, totally. So there was always music around, always different things. I mean, my dad sung a lot as well, so he DJ'd and he sung a lot. He loved karaoke, which is hugely embarrassing, but I think having a talent like singing is, you know, there's a huge passion. There's a huge passion for being able to sing your favorite songs, so to speak. I mean, we all dance along to music, you know, but being able to sing along to your favorite music is definitely a talent. So yeah, Dad was very much into DJing, collecting records, collecting CDs, always having CDs in the car, always having records at home, and yeah, being very much influenced by that. But then my older brother Simon, he is 7 years older than me, and when I was about 12, 13, he was doing a lot of producing and a lot of traveling around the world playing records, and he had a DJ set up in his room, and I was always very influenced by the music that he was playing. They were like early 90s hip hop days. UK jungle was sort of becoming a big thing back then. Simon was very much sort of acid house and techno, and yeah, he used to travel around the world playing. He had a small record label for a while that was called Delta B, and he remixed lots of records that got released. But his biggest influence for me was, I said to him, because I wanted to listen to his music all the time, and I said to him, how do I know what music I like, Simon? And he said to me, well, you're creative and you like art. Why don't you go to the library and rent some CDs that you like the look of? So I remember my very first interactions with music was going to the library and looking through CDs and records and listening to things in the library and then renting them and taking them home. And then the ones that I truly loved, I then went to the local records store, or say WH Smith's or Virgin Records back in those days, and then bought the records that we like. So, you know, like early influences of things like Beastie Boys and Cypress Hill, and then more kind of rock-based stuff like Iron Maiden or Megadeth, or kind of more Pink Floyd-y kind of sort of style stuff, because the artwork was so so immersive and so creative. It really struck a chord.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just going to say hello to Juicebox Dough, who is DJ Babs, who's on the show tomorrow on All Back to Mine. And as she says, yeah, especially for us oldsters, we're all in the same age category, I'd say. Pre-internet, so many records were bought just because I like the cover. Very, very, very true.
100%. No, literally, I would take an album home just because I like the look of it. And then you would, then you would find your gems. You'd find the singles that you liked on those records, and then you'd develop from that point. It's completely the opposite now, right? It's like, stream something, and then you might go and buy it. But it's for us, it's, if you like something, you purchase it, you have it in hand.
Yeah, and it's also very different, certainly with 45s, because although there are some that come with picture sleeves, a lot of them are just your generic black or white covers. You don't usually get any artwork with it at all. So there's something you miss. So when you get a picture cover, I bought some records today in Rare Kinds, and there's like 2, I think, that have got picture covers, and it's like you always sort of covet those a bit more because it's the art as well as the music. So
whenever I'm digging for 45s in boot fairs or charity shops or whatever, it's I love the feel of them, but flicking through the records, and it's kind of fast scanning the text. That's what I always really like. And then it's that kind of like, you kind of pick it up and you're like, hang on, this could be that song, and then you kind of have to kind of think about it for a minute, and then obviously listen to it. But then obviously it's finding those rare B-sides as well. I think that's really nice as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things I love about digging, because it just, I don't know whether it's neurons or whatever it is that going on in your brain, isn't it? You're sort of flicking through, you see an artist, you see a song, and straight away you're like, oh, okay, I know that song, I recognize that song. So it's really interesting, and
it's the same when you're playing out as well. Obviously, your own selection, but sometimes you might come across something that you're a bit like, oh, but then that is, something that's ingrained in you from youth, especially in our age era, as we said before. It's the having the thing and knowing that that track or that mix is on that thing, rather than just clicking stream and download. I remember I had Funkmaster Flex 60 Minutes of Funk Part 2, specifically that one, because it had some amazing cuts, some interesting dubs, and some really nice featurettes on it. But you couldn't get it anywhere else. YouTube didn't exist, and I played that CD to death. To the point where you could not play it anymore. And I only learned later on in life that you can get a CD skimmed, can't you? So you can read.
Oh, you've told me about this. You can get the
I didn't know that.
Layer.
So, and if that CD would have come with me all the way through to now.
Yeah, because you can get, I think it's the bottom layer, isn't it? You can skim that off, and then it still works because it's obviously lasers. But okay, so that's your musical influences, and we'll come back and talk about your dad obviously in a bit. One of the things that's interesting is, obviously I've spoken to your mum, and you've told me as well that she used to go to the DJ gigs with your dad, and she'd stand next to him pretty much for the entirety of the gig, and select records.
So
and pass the records.
Mum, I guess you can call her a dolly bird, was probably the best way to describe her. But yeah, she would wear a mini dress, and they'd go to the gigs, and then the girls would talk to my mum and say, I want to listen to this record, and then my mum would say, oh, they're asking for this or whatever. But interestingly, they started deciding to DJ out more to help pay for their mortgage that they wanted to get as a young couple. And it was on top of the jobs that they were already doing. So DJing for them kind of helped them create their family. And my dad had a friend who he DJ'd with, who used to be a bit of a technological wizard, and he would make kind of the first style booths where you'd put 2 record tables together, and then you'd cut some rubbish fader in it. But they also experimented with lighting as well, these kind of like polymetric kind of shapes with these really horrible light bulbs in. But it's kind of innovative, isn't it? It's, there there wasn't something to purchase, so you just went and made it and did it yourself.
Yeah.
And you know, audio engineering wasn't probably all that back in those days. But yeah, my mum fully helped out with the situation.
But I mean, it's great that they did that together, and like you say, the fact that they were building for their family by going out DJing, earning money to pay a mortgage so that they could build their family is
Yeah.
And the fact that they could do that with music is so important.
It is really, really important. And as I said earlier, you know, like I really like having music in my house and my family. And I feel that's from my mum and my dad, that we make sure there's always music in the car, or there's music in the kitchen when we're cooking or when we're doing something, you know. And my kids annoyingly have an Alexa now, and they're constantly saying, Alexa, play I Like to Move It by Real to Real or something like that. But it's just nice how that they can enjoy it, and they dance around the front room and whatnot.
Yeah, we can't diss I Like to Move because that's one of Zia's favorite
tunes. Yeah, no, it's a tune.
And Zizi plays it all the time, and she loves it, as do all the kids. But the thing is, it's because of Madagascar, not because of the fact it was back in garage back in the 90s or whatever it was. But that's cool. Okay, so moving on from that, then, how did you first get into being a DJ?
So as I said earlier, my brother had a pair of Technics in his bedroom with a cam mixer. I remember that specifically. And I used to be, when he was in his, I don't know, his 20s, I was that oiky 14, 15-year-old. And I'd sneak into his room and I'd put a record on and I'd try and scratch it and, you know, listen to the headphones, all that kind of stuff. And I remember distinctly always wanting to try it, but he always used to tell me off. He always used to say, you know, you got to collect your own records and you got to collect music. Just on a side note, I always say that to someone. If someone ever says to me, how do I start DJing? The first thing I say is collect music that you like.
Yeah.
Find music that you like. And then when you find those genres of music that you like, you can start connecting those songs.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a bit how I did it. So I said, my brother recommended to me that I go to the library, and I started picking up music that I liked, started collecting, I guess, a library in my mind of everything that I liked at that point, because I didn't really have any money. So it was slowly collecting stuff. You know, you might get a CD for your birthday or some pocket money, you go and buy a single or whatever. And yeah, just slowly doing it. And interestingly, I was telling this story to someone the other day, and their brother is the editor of DJ magazine, DJ Mag. And he said to me, oh, my brother's the editor of DJ Mag. And I was like, well, funny enough, when we were kids, we used to steal DJ Mag out of WH Smith's to steal the mix CD on the front.
Oh, the mix CDs, yeah.
And then we used to flick through the back, and then in the back of it would be like, I don't know, the DJ Argos catalog, and there'd be all the turntables, all the mixers, all the PA systems, headphones. And, you know, we used to get pens and we used to circle the ones that we wanted. And then one day we would be able to afford that bit of tech. And I'd say later on in life, I remember for like a Christmas present getting like, oh, yeah, I do remember actually. It's called a Hercules MP3 controller mixer.
Yeah.
And it was at that era where like, wow, it's an MP3s, and it was that kind of Napster, when everyone was downloading all the music. And then all of a sudden I was like, hang on a minute, I've got this library of music that I like in my brain. So I'm going to go, right, well, what happens if I mix this Busta Rhymes track with this Missy Elliott track or whatever? A real mess around, because my brother had always made music in the background of our houses. So it was always a bit like, oh, he started on an Amiga and then went through to PCs and so on and so on. And I started putting these tunes together. And interestingly, we were talking about my mum, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, Emma. She was very encouraging with these music choices. She would be like, oh, well, with this sound, with like this. And then yeah, just my collection of stuff started growing, my CDs and vinyl collection, so on and so on. And then I bought a couple of crappy pairs of turntables. And then I eventually was doing a bit of mixing on stuff like Tractor and Serato, and I was doing gigs, and that's actually how I met yourself.
Yeah.
And I eventually just saved up enough money to be able to buy the turntables that I wanted, and then the gigs that you do fund the records that you buy. Once you've got the turntables, then you put the PA system, the lighting, and then you've got everything all of a sudden. You know, it's just that passion of, you know, for me, that's how I slowly got into DJing, I guess, and it's a progression over probably 20 years of doing things.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely, like you say, it's exactly how it works. You know, I mean, when I started, I'd collected loads of music and bought loads of music for many years, and then I just ended up thinking, right, I need to get some decks. So I got some decks, and then I got some CDJs at the time, mixer, and then just went for it, and then it all sort of went from there. Just say hello to a couple of people. Double P, who inspired this show. Hello. Happy birthday to Minimal P, who was 10, I think, yesterday or the day before. And then we've got Air Adam in the house as well. Big up Air Adam. Yeah, so we met. I was going back through some of the photos because we got introduced, I think, by Toby Bryant from Jelly Funk, and he said, well, there's this guy Adrian, I think he'd met you, and then we met, and then we all sort of started DJing. We realized we were all doing sort of slightly different things in the same town.
You had Funky Junk,
I had Funky Junk,
Jelly Funk, and I had What the Funk.
You had What the Funk, yeah.
Like, we're all playing similar stuff.
Yeah. And it was like, why divide the crowd? Why don't we try and bring the crowds together? And it's in a way, it's a small part of what we did then is what I'm doing now with the 45 Kings and 45 Day and Twitch and all the rest of it. It's just bringing ideas together, bringing people together to spread things further out. So we started the Jelly Funk All Stars, and then we all started DJing together. And obviously at that time, I think, you know, it was pre my daughter, probably just about pre your kids. And we were all enjoying partying, and let's put it that way, drinking and all the rest of it, and which brings us onto the next topic, because you underwent quite a big transformation in terms of fitness. So I'm just going to put a sort of before and after photo,
cool.
And then obviously we can sort of talk about, you know, what your lifestyle was like on the photo on the left, and then obviously how it sort of gets to that. So I'm just going to put that up at the moment, so hopefully you can all see that. So that's you obviously on the left. That I don't know when this was, maybe 2013, 2014, something like that. And you can just see me holding the other
bottle of Stella.
Holding the other bottle there. You've cut me off, and then we've got a photo of you there. But I mean that's quite a big change.
Man, that's about probably about, I don't know, 7-8 years in between. Had a really big Captain Birdseye beard. And then I was out partying all the time, drinking, shots, food, bad choices, late nights, all that kind of stuff. And I generally remember when my son was first born, and I thought to myself, I really don't want to be a 26 stone guy trying to run around after my kids. Or my kid. And I just kind of went back to things that I knew before, and just slowly changed my lifestyle. Realized, you know, that you didn't really need alcohol to have a good time. It does help, but it's not important to learn that you have to drink with someone to have a good time or create a friendship.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about
circumstances. There are a lot of fake friendships. There's a lot of people like, oh, you know, I'll buy you a drink. Oh yeah, we're friends. And it's like that's a lot of bullshit there. Excuse my French. There's a lot of a lot of BS around, you know, and it's still around now. But I guess it's you learn where to spot it now.
Yeah, and I think it's something that certainly comes with age, and we've talked a lot on this show in the past about sort of alcohol addiction and dealing with that. And it's interesting getting to this sort of age. I'm not quite, you know, alcohol free. I do drink alcohol quite a bit, but also I also drink quite a lot of alcohol free stuff now to sort of replace it. But it's interesting to see how probably age, but I think also the youngsters now, you know, I see a lot of younger people who aren't necessarily going out drinking quite so much.
I think you know, the kids these days have more information in regards to lifestyle choices, and I think you know, from what I do for a living now, which I'm sure we'll talk about, I'm always encouraging people to invest in their fitness, invest in their
Yeah.
future selves, and making your lifestyle an enjoyable habit. Now, that could be, you can go and play records in a bar and you don't have to smash 10 pints and some Jaeger bombs,
No, exactly.
and your mixing will be awful anyway, but you'll be having a good time, But it's, going in and enjoying, immersing yourself in music, your getaway, so to speak,
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what you did then. So obviously you said you went back to things that you used to do, because from what I know, you used to do a bit of boxing and you used to do some rugby. So when you started on this new journey to sort of get back to shape, what did you start doing?
Yeah, so the first thing I did was basically try and lose a bit of weight. So I just looked at what I was eating and went, okay, you shouldn't be drinking fizzy drinks. You shouldn't be eating potato chips or crisps. You shouldn't be doing all that kind of stuff. And then just kind of slowly the weight started to shift. And I think I lost about, I don't know, a stone, 13 pounds odd. And then I was like, okay, well, I quite like boxing and I quite like lifting weights. Maybe I should just go and, try again. And I always remember, those first times stepping back into the gym and being really an intimidating place. You really don't know what you're doing. And same with boxing. It's like turning up to a boxing gym and you see all the guys full skipping or sparring and you're a bit like, oh, I'm so out of touch. That first step back in is the hardest. But, it's one small step at a time. Small steps lead to big goals. And that's the best way to describe it, is taking a small step, drinking less, eating less crap, and then doing more physically and so on and so on and so on. And yeah, my lifestyle just completely changed. And I didn't turn into one of those jerks that was like, I'm not going to have a slice of birthday cake, or I'm not going to go and enjoy myself with my friend and have a drink or hang out. I was always trying to be conscious. I was still trying to live my lifestyle. And as you as a parent, Criztoz, you well know that, loads of people say, oh, your lifestyle is going to change when you have kids. It's like,
Yeah.
only if you let it, really.
Yeah. And a lot depends on obviously the relationship you've got with your other half as well. And it's just about compromise and just knowing, okay, well, I can't quite do all the things I used to do, but obviously I can do them in more moderation, or be a bit more organized about my time. So, like we said before, I mean, we were DJing Friday, Saturday night, pretty much every weekend. It's like, as soon as kids come along, it's like, okay, well, maybe we do this once a month to start with, and then they get a bit older, and then, okay, we can do a bit more, but yeah, it's definitely, that does change, but it's just been conscious of what you're doing.
But I guess some people use it as an escape as well, right? So we all use DJing as an escape to get away, not get away from but escape into another place where we enjoy it. But it's the same with fitness for some people. They use it as escapism. They might be hiding from something, or they might be ignoring something. And unfortunately, a lot of people ignore their families and they are trying to escape. But I think it's trying to find a really healthy balance. I think that's really important.
It is, and it's interesting how I've been able to sort of share this with Zia, and it's been amazing being able to bond with her, and the fact that she's got into it, because we've got it's not just her. There's obviously other 45 kids who've been involved, and it's interesting because some of them have got siblings who just aren't into it at all, and some of the DJs are like, oh well, my daughter, I think Paul Salt, Mr. Salt, his daughter Polyphonics, who's the youngest one, is into it, but the other kids aren't. And it's just quite interesting because Zia could have been like, what, I don't like DJing, I don't want to play records, and I could be like, okay, that's a shame, but
it's a nice bond, isn't it? It's finding a nice ground to bond on. I mean, some, when I was growing up, we talked about a bit about different things. My dad always used to take me to rugby on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And I always remember being like, Dad, I don't want to go to rugby. And he's like, come on, we'll have fun. You can run around, you get muddy, And then it wasn't until later on in life that I realized he just wanted to go and have a beer on a Sunday with his friends in the rugby club afterwards. But
yeah, but it doesn't matter then, does it? Because as a kid, you're like, I'm spending time with my
we,
dad.
we bonded
Yeah,
over that. We
yeah,
bonded over rugby, and then later on in life, we would go and have a beer at a rugby game, or we'd meet in a pub and watch some rugby. Like I didn't really like Formula One, but my brother and my father bonded over Formula One. So here you
yeah,
bonding with records with your daughter. That's
yeah.
pretty cool, man.
Yeah. And it's it is. We'll see where it goes. It's been brilliant so far. It's been amazing how we've got it. Picking up on a couple of points. Food is obviously important, and obviously you've described about changing diet and things like that. And this is quite interesting because obviously Babs, who's coming on tomorrow, says she used to go out and DJ, and then she'd come home, and then 4 a.m. curries would be there, but now she sort of prepares things ahead. So food is important, and we talked about food last time. So you made quite a big difference in terms of food as well, didn't you? On top of everything else.
Yeah, really did. It's trying to understand food and have a healthy relationship with it. And preparing is really, really important. That doesn't mean you have to do a meal prep on a Sunday and cook all your food throughout the week, but
Yeah.
Being able to prepare mentally what you're going to eat, and if you're going out on Saturday night with your friend, you're gonna maybe you'll have a burger, but you don't have to have a burger every night up until that night you go out. Food shouldn't be something that you beat yourself up over. If you have a square of chocolate, so what? But don't have to eat the whole family,
the whole thing, the whole dairy milk, like 4 kilo pack.
Yeah, the Father's Day special ones. But it's like I to the viewer there, like I experimented with being a vegetarian I gave myself a month, and I was like, right, I'm going to try eating solely vegetarian food for a month, and I'll see what happened. This wasn't long after I tried giving up alcohol for 3 months. And as I said before, from doing that, I realized I didn't need alcohol to have a good time. I could go to a gig and drink water. I've been to so many gigs with you, and I just drank water, and I still had a really, really fun time. But yeah, with the vegetarian thing, I was like, I'm going to try it for 4 weeks, and it ended up being 3.5 years. And I did do a little stint of veganism, and there were certain things that I really missed. And so just recently, since January, I've started introducing meat again, but I do it as meat as a treat rather than meat all the time. You're reasonably similar with that as well. But
I don't eat a huge amount of meat, but
as a treat, right?
Yeah.
Very, very occasionally. But for me,
yeah.
like very, very healthy. We eat a lot of fish, all that kind of sort of stuff. But yeah, you have to find a healthy relationship with food. I think that's the key.
Yeah. And that all feeds into fitness, because there's no point going to the gym and doing reps and lifting weights and all the rest of it if you're then eating a whole load of junk food.
The best way to remember it, Criztoz, is the gym's the fun bit. Like you lift some weights, you find something you enjoy, or you box or whatever, and you have fun as community with fitness as well, which is really important. There's either that person at the gym you say hi to, or you join a lifting club or something like that. And that feels really good. But that's the fun bit. Like the boring bit, if you want to make a transformation in your life, is restructuring. And obviously we'll go into this more, but part of what I do for a job is I talk to people about their relationships with food. And telling someone how many chocolate bars or how many packets of crisps you've eaten in one day is actually harder than telling the doctor that you've got a mole on your arm or whatever. It's a really personal thing, and it's really difficult to do. And any advice I give for your listeners here is, if you do want to make a change in your life, write it down and become accountable of what you're doing, so that you can see it in front of you, and then you can start to make a change, because you can start to actually realize what's happening.
Well, I think it's very easy, isn't it? Especially if you've got biscuits, chocolates, sweets, whatever in the cupboard. Especially I think especially over the pandemic, when people have been working at home. I certainly found this. I'm a lot more conscious of it in the last few months. But when I was working at home, you'd know that you'd be doing a bit of work, right? Wander to the kitchen, grab a snack, come back, and then before you know it, you finish like a packet of biscuits, or you finish your bag of crisps and stuff. And it's
people do in offices, right? They have like bake sales at offices. you know, that someone will bring in some jammy Dodgers or whatever, and then all of a sudden everybody's eating them. You know, it's
if it's in front of you, it's quite easy just to sort of.
Well, yeah, and that's why I was saying
without even thinking.
Preparation is very important. It's like trying to think out that if you're doing your weekly shop or your monthly shop, you know, if you're going to buy a packet of Kit Kat biscuits, you know, try not to eat them all in the first few days of your shopping. You know, try and try to sustain them over a month or whatever.
Well, let's talk about the gym. You said about it being fun, and gym was something that I never. It just wasn't. It just didn't really appeal. I think I'd tried in the past to go along and, you know, done a bit of this and a bit of that. It just didn't work. And one of the things we were talking about, I was talking with Maculate about it last time, and he said one of the hardest things is obviously literally getting yourself to the gym. Is one thing. Obviously, if you can do something at home, then that's obviously a lot more easier. But one of the things that I found with you, and eventually after a bit of pestering, I did come along to one of your lifting events, which was Misfits. So, and I had a great time. You know, I'd never really lifted weights before. You know, did a bit of you know, deadlifts, some, you know, squats, some bench. I'd never done any of that before, and it was fun because of what you'd built in terms of the community, and it was a community lifting, so and called Misfits. So, you know, when did you first start that? Tell us a little bit about Misfits and what it seeks to do.
Yeah, cool. So Misfit Barbell Club is a non-profit community social club where we teach all ages and all abilities how to lift with a barbell, with your standard movements, as you mentioned, and also some strongman stuff mixed in. I really hate toxic gym culture. I think it's horrible. You know, the whole beating your chest and shouting and, you know, staring and all that kind of stuff. And what I would find is that there's a certain sort of group of people who are misfits, rebels, outcasts, who sort of stand on the edge of watching these other people doing that, thinking, well, I'd really like to try that, but I don't want to do that like you. I don't want to be like you, and I don't want to feel like that. So some of the gyms that we used to train at, we used to be friends with other people from other gyms, and we used to say, oh, well, let's visit your gym and let's train together doing the movements that we like without the people that we don't like. And trying to create this kind of alternative lifting club where we would all meet in different gyms at different weekends and enjoy lifting together. And as cheesy as it sounds, is lifting each other up is a bit of moral support. I've used to be part of other weightlifting clubs and boxing clubs where you would have very angry coaches who would basically be derogatory and make you feel crap. And I always remember saying to myself, if something isn't fun, it's not worth doing. It's really not. And so what we try to do with Misfit Barbell is we try to, you're a great example, is take people who haven't really tried it and say, come along. You know, resistance training and strength training is for everyone. It's very healthy. It's very good for your body. It's very good for your skeleton. And to say, come and give it a go. And look, here are 5, 10, 20 other people exactly like you doing the same thing. So you don't feel that excluded, standing on the edge, waiting to be picked for the football team. It's kind of like, Criztoz, here's Simon. Let's put you guys together. You know, similar height, similar build. Oh, Simon, what do you do for a living? Well, this is what I do, Criztoz. And then you all of a sudden you've made a friend in a way that in current society it's very difficult to make new friends. And some of the friendships that have been made in our community are actually outstanding. You know, like there's a regular group of girls now who've come to our club for years, who go to the pub quiz with each other every Thursday. And they would have only met, and they wouldn't have met if they didn't come to our little club. And there's people who've ended up working together. There's relationships being formed, and people have ended up getting careers in different scenarios. So yeah, it's a really lovely thing, and it's something that started possibly like 2016, 2017, probably more officially, and eventually we found a base in a gym where I was working, and we could regularly we could regularly train and regularly do stuff, and it's kind of developed from there. And now I have my own premises, and we still run the club twice a week.
Yeah, and I think, on a subconscious level, I think having seen what you'd done, had sort of been the forebearer of what we now do. And as Double P says, it's a bit like Twitch, because you created a safe space where, like you say, people like me are not, big strong man or anything like that, and then women as well, and then you also did some mini misfits where you taught some kids. We could all just come and be in the same place. The thing bringing us together was fitness, bit of lifting, and it's the same as what we do here on Twitch with the 45 Kings. The thing that brings us together is 45s, but again, it's a safe space that people can just be who they want. And I was chatting to Babs briefly yesterday when we did a little test, and she was saying one of the things is, the 45 Kings group is one of the only groups that has made her feel welcome, because she viewed herself a little bit as an outlier, or playing weird music or slightly different music to everyone else. And it's exactly the same thing that we're talking about. You've taken people
who have similar interests, right?
Yeah. Who, and like you say, and it's the same with us. If it wasn't for Twitch, if it wasn't for 45s, if it wasn't for whatever, we wouldn't all be meeting up. And the fact that we can now go out and meet in person and see people in real life is important. And I think, well, let's talk about the mental health aspect of lifting, and that. So, how does that impact on people's mental health? Because I think one of the areas you're looking at in the future, and we've discussed, is possibly having groups with domestic abuse survivors, because that's important. So yeah, let's talk about the mental health element of sort of fitness and lifting.
Yeah, cool. So I never really thought when I first started it that it would have such an impact on people's mental health, self-esteem, people with anxiety, special needs, people lonely, people. I didn't realize it would have such an effect on them with the group that we were making. In a scientific way, fitness releases endorphins and dopamine that makes your brain feel great, makes your body and your brain feel great. And it's a bit like drugs, alcohol, sex, chocolate. Your brain goes, oh, I enjoyed that, I want to feel like that again. And that's why it can become quite addictive, and really can really help boost your mental health. So if you're feeling low, and then you go to the gym and maybe lift some weights and feel good, and your thyroid and your vagus nerve in your neck starts releasing these endorphins into your body, and all of a sudden you feel great and you go home in a good mood. And I feel like unknowingly I've started to help my group of misfits become better people. When you were just talking a minute ago, I was thinking about one of the girls I train, and she was saying to me that she's never had a hobby ever.
Right.
She's never been into horses. She's never been into this. She's never been into whatever. She's just been this kind of alternative girl who might like a bit of punk music or whatever, but never really loved anything. And then found lifting and realized that she's all of a sudden got a hobby that she loves doing and so passionate about, and really immersed herself into it, and really helps her take her mind away from the feelings of day-to-day 9-to-5 work. And I love it. I think it's really, really important.
And I probably pronounced this wrong. Anandamide. It's the bliss molecule, creates the athlete's high.
Same in music, right? Like when you're
exactly,
and a DJ drops a tune. Like I remember going to see Shy FX, and he dropped Original Nutter, and literally it's like the hair's standing on the back of your neck. You're 14 years old all over again, and that feeling is unreal. That it's the same with watching a good movie, or going to I really like art, so going to a gallery and seeing something something in with your own eyes, or architecture. It's that kind of feeling. It's the molecule. That's the feel good factor. I think it's so important.
Definitely, and it's Double P saying it does that to him playing certain tunes, and I think it's
100%.
It's a similar thing for us as DJs, and I was talking to Benny when we went over yesterday to see Indie Mix and him, and obviously before, to get that sort of high or that little hit from DJing, you'd have to play a gig. You'd have to be going out and DJing a gig, and obviously, you know, there may be people who like it or not. Whereas now, what we do with Twitch, we can just go straight onto Twitch,
Yeah.
and like tonight, you know, there's going to be, you know, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20, how many people in there
Yeah.
joining in. And you get that sort of hit as well from one, playing music that you like, and the fact that people like the music, and there's the interaction. So yeah, and again, it's certainly helped my mental health. I know it's helped lots of other people's. And it was Double P who'd, yeah, and it was Double P who'd said to me, you know, about talking about his mental health and how he got into DJing to help his mental health, and you know, he's really progressing at the moment. You know, he's been involved in the Global Funk Fam, he's doing loads of streams. It's brilliant. Hi, Mark Funk 45. It doesn't matter that you're late, you're here. That's the main thing. Hello. But yeah, I mean, let's bring it back a little bit to music then. So obviously we met through Jelly Funk, and we were doing lots of gigs with Toby, largely Tractor. So we were doing digital DVS DJing, and then I think it got to one point where you just said, I think you did a party with 45s one night, and then you said to me, why don't we do that? And that sort of had, so tell me about 45s then. So what was it back then that you liked about 45s? And yeah, tell me about
that. Yes, I always remember 45s and singles from my granddad and my dad. You know, I always remember, what are these, you know, small objects with music on. I always remember that, and I always had a certain amount of stuff that I would dig through with collecting 12s or albums, you know, and picking up the occasional thing. And then I remember like thinking, that, you know, like, there's a certain amount of hip hop here on 7s.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, I want to try and find more hip hop on 45. And I was like, why is it so hard to find hip hop records on 45? I mean,
yeah,
like you know, like I'm not a big fan of the 80s. I don't mind it, but like, you know, there's a couple of crap like hip hop 45s from the 80s. Well, not crap, but you know what I mean. And yeah, it was this kind of like, oh, hang on a minute, I could find that sample on that soul or that funk record from that hip hop track that I like, or that dance track that I like, or so on and so on. And then all of a sudden, my DJing mind that I would do with other things started going, hang on a minute, I could create a little set here of things that I really like. I could put all these tunes together in a mixing sense, cutting sense, selecting sense, and I could start putting all these records together. And yeah, and obviously being close to yourself, it's kind of like, Criztoz, should we do a 45s night of, you know, like a purist sort of style night? And it kind of snowballed from there. But just on a quick side note, like I come from an art and photography background, and photography is another thing that's like a dying art. You know, like you take all these photographs and then you get all these exposures of 36 pictures, and then there might be something you like. And it's the same with music to a sense. You collect all these records, and there's only like, you know, a selection of tracks that you like. Anyway, my point is, it's a dying art actually physically holding on to something. How many photographs have you got on your iPhone that you haven't got printed? It's the same with, it's the same with music though, right? It's like, how many tunes have you got that you haven't got in file? So those 45s that you hold on to, or those records that you've got, mean a lot more to you. So it's a lot more precious. And those sets where you just turn up with a fishing bag full of records, and you've got to play a good set from what you've got. You know, it's nice. You know,
it's definitely an art. And so, you know, in case people don't know the history, so obviously you said to me, let's do a 45s night. We did a 45s night. I basically brought along a few of the 45s that I had. I was collected. We had so much fun. We were like, right, why don't we do this regularly? And then we became the original 45ers, me and you. And then we did, like, you know,
I remember that chat. I remember the chat we had. I remember it very clearly. We said, let's do a night where we just play what we want. And we play cool music and cool bars, and that's going to be our thing. Not trying to go, let's just play what these people want at this party or whatever. We were like, we're just going to play whatever the hell we want, and if they don't want to book us, we don't have to. I remember that really clearly, and I was like, that is what I want to do, because you know, you can be that DJ that just wants to please the crowd. And it's so easy to think, oh, I'll just play this tune because it will get the dance floor going or whatever. But with being a bit more purist with the 45s, it's a bit like, well, hang on a minute.
It's a little bit like what we were doing, wasn't it? Because I remember thinking that, you know, when we were doing, you know, I love the stuff we do with Jelly Funk, and it's different. But I found myself going back to the laptop, going back to the same crates, thinking, oh, that track was good last time. Almost playing the same 3 or 4 tracks in a row, which is fun. And obviously, you know, you're going to get the crowd going, but it wasn't really doing much on a creative level. And that's why obviously doing the 45s thing made a huge difference. But yeah, and then, you know, we've been pretty cool. You know, we've done festivals, we've done gigs, all sorts of stuff. It's only really COVID that sort of shut it down. But even now, you know, we're DJing together next, you know, later this week. So that's going to be fun to sort of do that again. Okay. Let's talk about a slightly more difficult time in your life. Obviously, we, as part of Jelly Funk, we won the Shindig. I think it's the 2017 DJ competition, and we got to open the Ghetto Funk nightclub that night, and we were there. But obviously, during that period, you got some bad news. Obviously, your dad wasn't very well, and obviously we ended up leaving the festival slightly early on the Sunday, and then unfortunately it sort of it didn't get much better after that, unfortunately, and your dad passed a little while later. So and this was before the birth of your second son, which we'll come to, Arthur, in a minute. But how did you deal with that? We've talked about grief and bereavement on the show before, but how did you deal with that? You know, your dad suddenly getting, you know, quite terminally ill, and then obviously, you know, not lasting long after that, unfortunately.
Yeah, so me and you we were watching like a samba steel drum band.
Yeah,
I don't quite remember exactly who they were, but interestingly, I met some of the band members in a queue at Glastonbury Festival a few years later. But anyway, regardless, and we were at this gig, and I had a message to call someone urgently. And I was like, Criztoz, I'm just going to step out. So I stepped out, and I got a phone call saying your dad's really ill. I could be a bit more descriptive about how that happened beforehand, but I told my mum to send him to the doctor because I'd noticed he wasn't very well on something. Anyway, and I was working away a lot, doing exhibitions for Harley Davidson, the motorbike company, and then I was DJing a lot with you on the in-betweens, and we used to go to festivals together and do sets and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I got the news, and basically I had to get to Brighton Hospital, the Millennial Ward, very quickly. And so they basically had found a tumor on my dad's brain, and they obviously had to do a little bit more investigation, and his speech was really slurry. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, had he had a heart attack or a stroke, and they found a tumor on his brain. And then what happened is that a tumor generally is a secondary indication of something else that's a problem. And he had stage 4 lung cancer. And it was quite shocking because I remember sitting in the room with the doctor, and I said, so doctor, you're not being very descriptive with us here. You're not actually telling us how long we have with Graham. Is this something that we can treat or whatever? And he was like, guys, you know, unfortunately, Graham, my dad, Graham has only 3 weeks-ish to live. And that's like being hit over the head with a hammer. It's like a really hard thing to process, really, 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 really difficult. And I remember walking, it's really not on context at all, but I remember walking out of the hospital after I was told that. And you know those like scenes in movies where like the camera's attached to them and they're kind of running down the hallway, and then the room is spinning, all that stuff. That's exactly how I felt. Maybe I was going to faint, but I don't know. It was really bizarre. And I remember the room spinning, and I remember lots of corridors, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, and anyway, so yeah, basically what happened was 3 weeks exactly later, he passed. He had to have an end of life program. You know, like they couldn't give him any chemo, they couldn't give him any drugs. He just basically had to die. And watching, I was really, really close to my dad. So watching someone that you really love and really respect deteriorate in front of you, it was like heartbreaking. Like,
Yeah.
And I miss him every day.
Yeah.
But so he died, and I was due to go to work at Glastonbury Music Festival.
Yeah.
2 days later, and I was like, you know, I don't really want to go because I'm sad and da da da. But my dad, as I said to you in the earlier part of the interview, you know, like, was massively into music, and he was a very genuinely happy person. You know, like, if you knocked on my door and I wasn't in when I used to live with my parents, you'd end up sitting having a drink with my dad.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a great guy. He was a great guy.
Thanks,
I only got to meet him a few times, but yeah, he was a great guy.
And if you were, you know, if you were at a party, he'd be the one telling the story, and so on and so on. Anyway, so I was like, F it, I am going to go to Glastonbury regardless of how I'm feeling. And I was pretty broken, as you probably you could imagine. And my little community of people I worked with at Glastonbury festivals, I was building bars at that time, which is, you know, like building craft bars, or, you know, for people to have an experience when they go to a bar at a festival.
Yeah.
And I was with that little crew, and it was just a really nice time to kind of lose myself a little bit, not in a getting messed up kind of way, but kind of losing myself and finding myself with people who I don't normally spend time with, and I got a chance to speak to them. Yeah. And it's quite difficult trying to explain your process to someone who hasn't been through it.
Yeah.
And how you're grieving, and it's such a raw feeling. And I remember sitting around a campfire in the staff area, and I was smoking a spliff with this guy, and we were just chatting away, and he had been through exactly the same thing that I'd been through, and I got to open up to someone who I didn't know, and that kind of I don't know how to explain it, that kind of moment where I was not being judged at all, because this person had already been through it, and I could open up and I could be normal, and that really helped me start to process with the grieving. Now, at the time when I came back from the festival, I was really into the gym and fitness, so I kind of lost myself and escaped to the gym to try and escape talking about how I felt. I kind of hid from my wife and hid from my friends. It's very difficult because, you know, people say to you, oh, my text messages, or my, you know, give me a call, or, you know, happy to help you out. But, you know, like, I'm not going to ring someone up at 2 a.m. when I'm feeling sad in bed and go, oh, I'm feeling sad. You know, unfortunately, that doesn't really work like that.
No.
And at the time, there were some weird friendships going on, and and you kind of think to yourself, like, these false friendships you kind of sort of lean into, and you kind of think, oh, this person's trying to help me.
Yeah.
But the reality is the only way I managed to get through my grievance was by actively talking to my dearest and my most loved friends and my closest family about the scenario. I think that was the way that I got through it, because I feel like if you suffer in silence, you're just going to bottle up, and then start being snappy. And like I was like that. I was like snapping at my wife, or, you know, my mom, who was, you know, just gone for a grievance and lost her husband of 25 years. And I feel like talking and vocalizing what had happened and how I felt was the way that I got back to being myself. And that was quite a hard process. Probably about 1.5 years, I think that took me to do.
Yeah, definitely. Talking is one of the most important things, and I think I'm obviously learning more as I talk to everyone. And the fact that, first of all, thank you thank you so much for being open and sharing, what went on. But it's getting people to talk about it. And like you say, I mean, I'm not a stranger to you, but you're talking to a load of people here who you don't know. But you're talking about important things. And we've had other people on the show talking about it. Funky Flavors, who was in the chat, I don't know if he's still here, but he came on the show. It lost his dad, I think, 4 days before the show, and it came on, and he was like, no, it's important. I'm going to come on. I'm going to talk about it. And like you say, talking to people gets it out. And I remember, things were a bit difficult, understandably. I remember we went to Leapalooza. We DJ'd at that festival. And again, we just, we didn't really talk about it much, but we just, you, me, my wife, your wife, and Toby and his wife, and we just got drunk. And
that was one of the funniest nights we had.
It was
a very, very, very fond memory of that. And I can remember my oldest son Harry. He knew I was sad, and he would always come and try and cheer me up or give me a hug or whatever. That was always really nice. And someone described it to me in a very good way who lost their father. It's like you've been hit by a car and you're never going to heal, but you learn to deal with that injury or that wound over time. It doesn't hurt as much. But obviously it hurts to start with, but over time the feeling isn't as raw and as painful.
Yeah, I think like Double P says, you adapt.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And like you said earlier, you're always going to think of him pretty much every single day and miss him every day.
I really do.
Obviously, the grief is, a few years on, must change, from there. Okay, so that was obviously quite a difficult time in your life, and that was followed by quite another difficult time in your life when Arthur was born, and he was born, I think, 24 weeks, 25 weeks,
27 to be exact.
27 weeks.
So Emma lost her fluid around the sort of 25, 26 mark, so she carried it for a couple of weeks without.
So that's a very, very premature baby, and obviously, it's touch and go for a while. I'm just gonna. I can't remember how many weeks he was at this one, but I'm just going to put a photo up at the moment of Arthur. And I think the important thing to show there is that's your wedding ring around his wrist.
My wedding band around his wrist.
Yeah. Exactly. So if you think of the size of your finger, and obviously that's his wrist.
I've got quite big.
Yeah. And I remember coming and we came and visited you and saw you there. I can't remember how many weeks he was at that point, but even then he was absolutely tiny. But let's talk about that. So how did that impact on you when first of all when you had this premature baby, and you didn't know at that stage what the future was going to hold, because you're still trying to work, you're still trying to look after the rest of your family, look after Emma. So yeah,
I was in the middle of that. I was trying to change my career as well at the same time.
Yeah, of course.
Which was very very interesting time. Me and my wife didn't expect it at all. Like it was literally, it happened out of the blue, and we now know why later on, but we just didn't expect it at all. And he came at 27 weeks and he was 2 pounds, and he had to stay in NICU, which is intensive baby care, childcare, for 3 months. And in that time he stayed in incubator. He had hernias, and sepsis and all this kind of horrible things. And I generally didn't like hospitals from what happened with my dad not that far before, but now I had to hate them even more. But you just learn to live with it, and it was very impactful. It was very difficult, and I think the strength of mine and my wife's relationship really helped us get through that tough time, because we couldn't. If we didn't work as a team, it would have broken down very quickly. And what we didn't say about my father, Graham, is that Emma lost her stepfather, Chris.
Yeah, of course.
About 2 or 3 weeks difference in time to Graham. So me and Emma were both, gone through a certain amount of grievance. And then this happened with Arthur. He came very early. He was very small. It was very scary. Emma has one of the most cherished moments of your wife coming to visit her and supporting her when she was really a really low point. So Emma will always remember that about Claire. And it was really tough, man, really tough. It's hard to kind of process and talk about it in a general reality of what actually happened and how you got through it. But the only way I can describe it is it was just one step at a time, and you had to trust the doctors, you had to trust the nurses, and one day you'll be going home with your baby and touch and go, you know, like you hear stories about, you know, kids that don't survive, and you know, stuff. It's really, really tough.
It's tough because obviously we had it with you and Claire's stepsister.
That's right.
Premature baby, and unfortunately, that, you know, he didn't make it through, and that was very tough. But yeah, thankfully Arthur did. I'm just going to put a photo. This is probably a couple of years ago now, with that same wedding ring.
That's right.
Around,
the wedding ring's around his finger now. So obviously he's probably about 2.5, 3 there.
Yeah,
and
just turned 4.
He's a very loved little chap. He's very, very, very bright as well. And you know, for your viewers, you know, Criztoz and his wife Claire are my son's godparents. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anything ever happened to myself or my wife, that Criztoz and Claire would be a guardian or a voice for them. And you know, very well chosen. You know, you guys, he really loves you guys.
Yeah, he's cool.
It's a really lovely thing watching Arthur grow up so healthily. You know, like no implications or anything like that. He had a bit of a lazy eye, but he had that corrected recently. But yeah, he's a lovely, intelligent, bright little boy.
Yeah, and it's amazing, you know, to see him. Like I said, you know, having been to the hospital, seen where he was, and even at that stage, you know, we didn't know what was going to happen. You know, you always wish for the best, but you just never know. But it's amazing, you know, that he's growing up, and yeah, he's a great little kid. You know,
and we always raise money for the charity that looked after us. So,
that's what I was going to say next, because when we came to visit you, you guys were staying in the Ronald McDonald House, which they've got, I think, next to most hospitals around the world, which have got premature baby units.
Most of the big hospitals,
yeah, and obviously you as a family, because the hospital was in Brighton, we live in Eastbourne, so it's almost an hour's drive each way. They allow families to be able to stay there. So Emma was able to stay there, and obviously Harry was there, but obviously Harry was, I think, you were probably at school by then. But obviously Emma was then next to the hospital and could go there. So, and that's all funded by, if you go to a McDonald's and if you go to a drive-through, there's a little coin thing when you normally pay that you can put money in. But obviously you guys also, you guys also raise money, and we, you know, I've DJ'd with you and as Zia, one of the fundraising things. But also off the back of that, they invited you to go and do a talk, didn't they? One of the fundraisers. So I mean, how must that have been, having been through all of that, to then be recognized as someone who, you know what, this family or this person and Emma can perhaps help us raise money so that we can help other families. You know, how was that? How did that feel?
Very rewarding. Making people aware of the situation, I think, is really, really important. I had no idea what Ronald McDonald Charity Housing was before I had the opportunity to stay with them, to help parents with sick children be close to their children at all times throughout their duration in a hospital. And just as a quick side note to what you said, so Criztoz is right. You know, when you go through a drive-through, there's that little coin bin underneath the window, and you could throw in your change. But there's not a lot of cash around now from the pandemic. So actually what's happened recently is, if you ever go into a McDonald's, they've got a touch screen thing. And it always says on the last thing before you pay, it will always say, would you like to round your purchase up to the nearest pound and donate that money? So it costs £25 per night to house a family like myself, to be in a Ronald McDonald thing. So, you know, when you go through a McDonald's, you know, try and round up to the nearest pound or the nearest dollar and support someone, because I never thought that would happen to me, and it did. And I was there for 3 months, and the charity housed us. So yeah, to go back to what you were saying, so they recognised that myself and Emma as a family. We even went on a McDonald's photo shoot. You know, they brought a photographer in, and we ended up being on the trays in McDonald's at one point. You know, like kind of holding the babies.
Yeah.
But so the charity asked me to go and speak at a ball for a local private school who had chosen the charity to raise some money for them. And I was kind of a bit like, well, I'm only just telling my story, but what they wanted to have was the dad's side of when a premature baby is born, because everyone's always, always mother first, which it should be.
Yeah, of course.
But they were sort of saying, let's talk about the mental health of the dads and how they feel and what the process that they go through to try and get out the other side. And in my speech I was sort of speaking about, you never know what's behind the next door. Like you're in your hospital, you never know what's behind the next door. You never know what the next thing's going to happen. And when you end up in the car park and you're sitting in the car late at night because you said goodbye to your wife and your baby in the hospital, and you sit and you have a little cry in your car, and then you think, right, I've got to sort this out, and I've got to stay strong, and I've got to go to work, and I've got to come back, and I've got to support, and all these horrible feelings. But anyway, so I spoke about that, quite a positive speech, and they basically wanted me to talk before the raffle was drawn, because then all these kind of business owners and rich parents would then donate towards this very important charity. And they ended up raising £15,000 from my speech.
That was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. I remember you telling me.
I'm still gobsmacked that happened. And so whenever we have an opportunity to raise some money, we always raise money for Ronald McDonald. And as you said, like Zia come in to play some records, and then like we've done garden parties, and me and you did the
Christmas, we did the Christmas one a couple of years ago. Yeah,
all that kind of stuff. And it's just kind of staying together as a community and creating awareness for a charity that's super, super important.
And community is important, and when we talk a lot about it on this show. And so I'm just going to see. Yeah, okay. I didn't know that, Lee. So obviously, Funky Flavors went through something very similar. But yeah, like you said, the nights were very long and scary. Yeah,
very long and scary. And you have to stay strong. It's not strong like in the gym strong. It's mentally strong, I guess. It's like you have to hold it. You have to hold it down as best you can, because obviously there's a lot of there's a lot of machines, and
there's a lot of pressure, isn't there? Because it's I think for women, obviously, it's physical. I mean, I haven't been through what you've been through, but as you know, Claire's had a lot of miscarriages, and we've lost a lot of babies along the way. Thankfully, we've got Zia, but we've lost a lot of others. And my view was, I had as the man, not being sexist, but I had as the man to try and be strong, and stay strong, because you've got to be strong to try and support your wife who's going through the mental aspect of it, but also the physical aspect of it. We weren't going through the physical aspect of it, but we're certainly going through the mental aspect. And it took me a long time, probably not till maybe maybe about a couple of years ago, when I sort of started to recognize that, it had impacted on me. I just bottled it up, not really talked about it, compacted it, and sort of left it. And then till something happened, and I was like, okay, right, this is all coming out now. But yeah, like you say, it's the expectation, because you were still working. You were still trying to change your business. You're still trying to support your family. You were still looking after Harry, having to take him to school, on top of going to Brighton back and forth, on a regular basis, and going there. But coming back to community, when you stayed in the house, you guys met up with Glenn and Katie, who also had that, and they're important, because obviously Katie and Emma grew a big friendship. And then it's followed on to now Katie's coming to your classes. Katie's now a PT. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how that sort of link up and what's happened has had some positive effects further down the line.
The older I get, the more I believe in the people you meet along the way are supposed to be part of your pathway in a maybe an alternative or a subconscious style. And the less people you try and hold on to, the more that happens. I find, like Katie and Glenn have become very good friends of ours, and Katie, now works for me, and both Arthur just had his 4th birthday, and then Katie's daughter Dulcie Lou just had her 4th birthday. And there's a video. I remember I said about the photo shoot for McDonald's. Katie and Emma did a friendship video which they circulated around Instagram. And it's very true what they say at the end of that video. They said they celebrate all the small things together. And a bit like when we go back to what we're talking about with Misfits, you celebrate the things together. When we go out DJing, like we celebrate each other's mixes or whatever, it's that kind of, and I think that's what being a friend is all about. It's a two-way street, and you can really tell a bad friendship when it's not being reciprocated both ways. And I say celebrating all the small things and taking those people along your journey with you. I think that's really, really important. But yeah, Glenn, Katie, and also the Brighton house, we've stayed in contact with them very much so as well.
Yeah, it's amazing, and then it does bring us back to sort of what we're doing here, because we've got great friendships, and again, it's like you say, it's celebrating the other person. So for me, I love when a DJ comes on, and for example, Double P. I know he won't mind me saying this, but he struggles. Some weeks he's really into it, some weeks he doesn't want to do it, and sometimes he just needs a friendly word saying, look, do it, it's great, just jump on. And then you see him do a set, and then he's really happy afterwards because he's done it. And it's that support, and I think it's so important, not just for men, but maybe primarily for men, because we're again expected to just rise above it all, and just be serious. But let's just have a little recap. Mark Funk said, how did we meet? Okay, so we know each other in real life. Mark, basically we met probably around 2013, something like that. We were DJing separately in our local town, as was another guy, and then we all got together and started DJing together, and then just became sort of really good friends, and then eventually led up to us being the original 45ers, playing just 45s.
I always liked Chris. I always liked when I met Criztoz, because I never knew what he did for a living. I don't know if these guys know what he did, but I never knew what he did for a living, and I always thought he was like a superhero, and he had like this double life that I only knew one part of his life, but he had this whole other part of his life that was seriously serious, and it was a bit like, whoa, this guy's crazy, because then I talk about Criztoz with other people, and they'd know this part of the life, but I'd only know this part of the life. So it was always a bit bizarre.
It is funny, because obviously I've got a bit more of a professional job apart from DJing, and then like you say, people know me for that, and then other people know me as DJ, and then they're like, oh, hold on, but you DJ, and oh, hold on, but you do this as a job. So it's quite interesting.
But that's the thing, with music, it's just it's a different form of escapism.
Yeah, it's a different escape. Well, let's talk about 45s then. You haven't got them with you, but on the show I always ask people to sort of talk about 3 45s that lift their spirits. It's something that Mark Lancaster asked in the very first show that we did with Double P and Mr. Musto. But you haven't got them with you, because I know you're in the middle of a big move and sorting out your new gym and all the rest of it, which we'll come back to in a minute. But so you sent me the 3, but talk us through each one and why they lift your spirits and why they mean something to you.
So my first one was It Takes Two by Easy Rock. It is just a banger. It just makes me happy. It actually reminds me a lot of watching like old DMC scratch competitions. Me and you have been to a couple together, but I remember like watching the VHSs of it, and then like DJs would drop tunes like that, and the place would explode. So whenever I play those sort of era records, like It Takes Two, it just makes me want to dance, makes me feel happy, makes me remember things from the past, you know.
And again, that's the thing. It's music is so important because we talked about this a little bit earlier, maybe before the show, about the neurons firing around.
Yeah.
And it's obviously been proven with adults who've got dementia, isn't it? Or Parkinson's, I think, isn't it? And they listen to the music, and then obviously it takes them back to a period in their brain when they were listening to this music. So yeah, I love that music takes you somewhere. You know,
Yeah, 100%. I was just thinking about what you were saying about your friend a minute ago. He's saying like some days are good, some days are bad, and whenever he finishes the set, he always feels good. It's a bit like 10 minutes of something can turn into an hour of something amazing. You know, like if you can just physically commit to 10 minutes, you know, 10 minutes of DJing is going to turn into an hour or 2 hours of messing around at home. 10 minutes of fitness in a gym will end up being 45 minutes of doing something.
Yeah,
you know, but yeah, as I said, you know, like Easy Rock is just literally, you know, for me it's just a party tune. It's something that I love. To lead on to the second one is the 45 King, the 900 number.
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a track. You know, it's used in loads of different things. Let Me Clear My Throat is a very good one. You know, like I mentioned, like from Muscle Flex and all that kind of stuff before. And you know, it's just a tune that's ingrained in my brain, that's always there. And you know, if you like cut and paste DJing or drop DJing, you know, that is a tune that you can literally jump in at any point, and it just works really,
the
really
place
well.
normally explodes, doesn't it, as soon as you drop?
Yeah. I mean, most people expect to hear the vocal version of it, but unfortunately, you know, if you know that the original didn't actually have it, you know.
Yeah. Was that the third one? Or was
No,
that
the
the second
third one was.
I was going to say, yeah, you added a bonus one. It's all right. We allow bonus tracks on this show.
No, it's the third. It's Fatback Band Bus Stop.
Yes.
It's just a tune. So, like, I have a couple of songs that would be my desert island track that I would take to a desert island and I would listen to forever. And my number one is Marvin Gaye, Gotta Give It Up. But my number two would probably be Bus Stop. It's a tune that just plays and plays and plays. You can listen to it 10 times and it's not enough, you know. It's just pure funk. Lets your hips start moving, lets your shoulders start rolling, you know, head starts bobbing, you know. It's a great tune.
And you do play it quite a bit. And I normally, if we're playing back to back, I normally drop Double Dutch by a Fatback Band.
Yeah.
Whereas now, since obviously we haven't DJed together for a while, you can actually get the Shaka Khan.
Can you? I didn't know
Sugar.
That's
now on 45. I think it's a cheeky bootleg, but I think quite a few of us have got it now. So next time we play out, I'll bring that out and then we can do that.
Nice.
But yeah, sorry, jumping back a little bit to what you said. 10 minutes of something, you know, builds to something else. And I think the way that Twitch has been important for us, and we've discussed this before, is having something to look forward to. And the way, you know, you haven't really, I think we streamed together a little bit when we did one of the deadlifts and donuts thing at your gym, but and we will do, you know, once your new place is up and running, we'll do it a lot more. But it's the fact that, you know, if someone says to you, right, you're streaming, for example, you're streaming on my show, Coffee and Donuts, our show on Saturday morning, you have to do it. You know, you can't let people down, and it means whatever feeling you're like, you know, if you're feeling like crap or, you know, you're not feeling great, you will get on and you'll start playing, and then within a track or two, it just lifts your spirits because you know, you've got people watching, you've got people supporting you, and I was talking again to Benny about this at the weekend, and during the pandemic, having Coffee and Donuts, the show, got me out of bed on a Saturday morning because, you know, I was on at like 9, the show started at 8, Rob would play at 8. And, you know, during the pandemic, when we were all locked up, we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't really do anything. You know, if I didn't have that, I'd be like, you know what, I'm just going to stay in bed. I can't be asked, you know, what's the point? There's nothing to do. We can't go anywhere. Can't do anything.
It's supporting each other, right, isn't it? In a way that people that you technically have never met before, but you have a common interest.
Yeah. And it was just having something to do, and knowing that other people are relying on you, that you're going to turn up and host the show. And
during the pandemic, Criztoz, I kind of did the same thing. Like where gyms were closed, forced to close, we had to create. We didn't have to, but we created an online fitness community where we ran like Zoom and Teams sort of style workouts where we'd invite people along, and you know, and telling people that they're doing good at what they're doing and keep going. And, you know, this is the workout, we'll do it together, playing some music. And it was creating a little thing where someone had something somewhere to be at Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Exactly.
A bit like you with
Yeah.
your shows. You know, everyone had a bit of focus, and it helped people get through together. And that really, you know, was really important. You know, creating a little online community of fitness classes. Emma, my wife, also wrote a daily newsletter during the pandemic, where she just emailed out. It could be a sentence, it could be an essay, but you know, there was always something on there, always a bit of artwork, or you know, always a little message to people. But that was really important during the pandemic, because you know, it was very weird having businesses being forced to close. And
because you'd only just literally started as well, hadn't you?
Yeah. So where I'd been PTing for quite some time, and then I was like, okay, well, now it's time to open our own studio. And my wife is a massage therapist, and she has been for 20 years. And it was like, okay, well, if I get a little gym space, maybe you should get a little treatment room. And yeah, we spent all of our savings, and literally like 4, maybe 5 months into it, it's like the government goes, nope, you've got to close. But you know, we kind of adapted, man. Like you have done. Like I remember watching some of your first streams, you know, like sort of
very different,
dodgy potato style webcam, you know, like, and you know, like music's not quite syncing to the whatever, and you know, like you go and you know, you buy the right adapter, you buy a little light, you know, and look at your setup now, very pro. You know, it's the same with us. You know, like we bought some lights and we invested in microphones to be able to speak to people clearly. And you know, what that helped us do is improve our online content, because we found that the more professional that we showed ourselves, you know, we were investing in our business. We wanted people to invest in us, so we tried to be professional and approachable, I guess, is one way. And it's the same with what you do. You know, you're very approachable on how you encourage other people to join in with what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's really rewarding to see how people progress. And like you say, with people with the fitness, you know, they've, you know, some of the girls have got together their own little group and they're doing that. And it's the same with us. You know, it's nice to see how something we started with the 45 Kings, people have gone off and done their own thing, like done their own raid events, or
I mean, like, lucky, you know, like
shows and
right around the country visiting people. You know, that's just,
well,
you know, that wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't.
No,
you know, pen pals doesn't really exist anymore. You know, and
it's the equivalent.
It is the equivalent of it. Yeah.
And it's also nice with the sort of next generation, because obviously, like Zizi went and met this week, and then 2 weeks ago we went to Great Yarmouth, and she DJ'd with Evie Wonder, and it's just cool. I mean, it's, you know, it's bonkers. You have to pinch yourself sometimes to sort of think, you know, the sort of stuff that's going on. It's all crazy.
But you know, your children are a reflection of you. You know, your children grow up, you know, seeing what you do. You know, so you're rubbing off the right way on her. You know, and it's in the same with your wife with the dancing and stuff. It's just, it's really important. It's, you know, we try and do that with our kids. We try and encourage them to do things. You know, like my dad, unfortunately, you know, made me go to rugby every week, and then, you know, I was forced to go to sports club in the summer because they just wanted me out of the house. You know, and I hated it. But later on down the line, I realised the difference between good and bad coaching and good and bad encouragement. And we are very positive about what we do. We try and encourage people all the time. I think it's really important. Yeah,
definitely. Right, let's get to the sort of last bit of the show. You haven't got any of the sweets with you, but we talk about confectionery corner, and I know it's a bit of a juxtapose with the sort of fitness and stuff, but you know, what particular sweets or confectionery do you like?
I find it very, very hard to walk past Reese peanut butter cups without purchasing them.
Oh yes, I know.
I find that really, really difficult. Like if I'm in Morrison's, I know exactly where they are, and if I walk past them, they generally end up in my trolley. And if I'm in a petrol station and they're on the side, it's like, it's like a homing beacon. I met someone recently who thinks they're disgusting. So we were kind of we were kind of sparking off each other. My mum used to work for Cadbury's chocolate, so I don't really like any Cadbury's chocolate because her garage used to be like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. There was like crunchies, cream eggs, you know, Cadbury's dairy milks, like on demand. You could have whatever you wanted, and there was no limit to it. And yeah, really put me off a lot of chocolate. So for me, it's Reese's.
Yeah.
That's definitely my go-to all the time. On my sweet kind of front, I think I'm more kind of like a Haribo Tang Fantastic kind of, you know, soury kind of sort of sugary sweet. They're kind of my go-tos, I think.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Right, I'm just gonna have a quick look and see who's online, and we will raid out to someone. Let's have a look. We're going to see Flip Out. Yeah, we're going to see Flip Out. He's doing an all 45s Bismarcky special, so that's a good one.
Nice.
Let me just set the raid, and then we'll sort of close up. Hold on. Right. But yeah, I mean, interesting that we're ended up rating to DJ Flip Out, but I was talking about him to Benny at the weekend, and it was just interesting that he's someone who I would have viewed and watched on, you know, one of these Scratch Bastards barbecue events. You know, you'd watch it on YouTube afterwards, and then obviously he's someone who now, you know, sort of know through this. He DJs on 45-day streams and stuff like that, and it's great. And he's also got a little girl called Mars, a little baby, and he brings her on and sort of DJs with her, which is quite good fun. But thank you so much, Adrian. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much for being honest and sharing what you've been through. It's been, you know, ups and downs, and it hasn't been easy, but thank you so much for sharing it, and thanks for being on the show. It's been great,
mate. It's an absolute pleasure. Like, it's actually given me a well-earned break because as we sort of mentioned earlier, I'm moving premises at the moment, and I'm just full-on construction mode trying to get this new building ready, and starting to burn out a little bit. So it's been really nice to chat to a very good friend of mine.
Yeah, take some time out and relax.
Some time out and chill. And I think after this, I'm going to go and play some PlayStation with my son. So it's quite nice.
Brilliant. And yeah, hopefully once the gym's open and I saw the sound system, we'll get the decks in and we'll start doing some streams from there.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, we'll make sure you do some good parties and you can stream it on one of your shows or whatever. Definitely. We'll make sure we get some people nice to see it.
Cool. All right, take it easy. Enjoy. I'll be back tomorrow night. All back to mine. Catch you soon.
Thanks, guys. See you later. Bye, Criztoz.
Bye.